That's right. Okay.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, happy Friday, everybody. My name is Marguerite Arnold, and welcome to this week's edition of Clearly Cannabis. Our host tonight are myself, Marguerite Arnold. I'm a journalist and cannabis entrepreneur, as well as Martin Weller and Patrick Dougherty. This is being brought to you by several websites as well that we hope that you will check out, both Cannalist EU as well as cannaclear.de. We also have a YouTube channel, Clearly Cannabis, that this is going to be recorded and posted on, and we will be doing a transcript that will be posted on the website of Cannalist EU. The format of the program is going to be an hour. We are going to encourage all of you who are part of the conversation to have your questions as well. We're going to start this off with a brief introduction of tonight's guest, we are very, very honored to have on with us. Andres Luques is the Undersecretary of Agriculture for the country of Ecuador. And tonight we're going to be focusing on some of the overall issues and I guess procedures that and sort of uber questions that he is facing as he is taking his country into a medical cannabis world. So first of all, Andre, welcome to Clearly Cannabis. How are you tonight?
Hi, thank you. Nice to meet all of you. I have, can I share a screen, please?
Please do.
Okay. I think you have to put me as an administrator. Okay.
So while we'll set this up. So as we're talking about this, I think that you wanted to talk a little bit about just giving people a background of your country of Ecuador and where it is and where it sits and its many, many benefits.
Yes. There. Please tell me if you already see the screen, please. And I apologize if we have any technical issues because it seems that the internet is slow right now.
Yeah, we have the map now.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
We can.
Do you see the Google Maps here?
Yep.
Looks awesome.
Here you see South America, and then I'm going to zoom in into Ecuador. Here is already Ecuador. We have the Galapagos Islands over here. If you didn't know they belong to Ecuador, now you do. And here you have the country. As you see, it's crossed by the Andes region. These are very high mountains. We have one that is above 6,000 meters. Quito, for example, the capital here is at 2,800 meters. And then, for example, I'm located right now here in my local city, Guayaquil, which is the main port. And here you see we have the coast where you have, when you go to the supermarket and you buy bananas from Ecuador, they are mostly grown around here.
Okay.
Okay. And here you have the Amazon region. This is where the first expedition to the Amazon originated. It was Francisco Pizarro left from Quito and went down, and he discovered Amazonas River back then. So although we don't have the Amazonas River, we call it the Amazon region. All these rivers end at the Amazon at some point. So we are mainly an agricultural land. Agriculture, mainly cocoa, was the main export when the Republic was founded about 824. And it was the money from this cocoa export. We were the main exporter until 1920. And all this money funded the local banks. Then cocoa has some problems. We're still a cocoa country. It's one of the main crops. But then about the 50s, we developed the bananas industries. Later on, the shrimp industry was also developed in Ecuador. And in the highlands, the entrepreneurs from the highlands, from Quito and so on, they were the pioneers in the flower business, roses main. So now they have been having problems because at about year 2000, we dollarized the economy. We had hyperinflation. So that forced us 20 years ago to use the dollar as our main currency. So we don't have devaluations right now, but we are now a more expensive country to produce compared to, for example, Colombia, Peru, where they have local coins and they devaluate, and so they are more competitive sometimes.
Can I ask a question about your port infrastructure? I think that we can get into this, but some of this, since we're looking at your map, where are your export ports, and what is the infrastructure like?
This is the main export city from Ecuador, and here now technology is marvelous, so I can show.
It is awesome, right?
Very cool.
I can show you where the port actually is. So it's here around in the south of the city. I will have to look for it actually. No, it's here. So you have some private ports, and you have also the main exportation port. I don't find the cranes right now, but it's somewhere around here. And here inside this part, you also have some private ports. So it actually, as you see, some history here, it's a port at a river like Hamburg, for example, or Bremen, because back then you have to fight off pirates. So if you go around here, you still see cannons from back there, and usually all the docks were here just at the street. But now, because world has changed, and you have a main port, which is here. This is where the port is. And then you have smaller ports. This is where all the crops, agricultural commodities go out. And then you have a smaller port here in Manta, which is more for fish. This is where the fishing industry is mainly. And then you have the port of Esmeraldas, which is where we ship the oil. So the oil, mainly in Ecuador, we are an oil producing country. Sadly, I don't think it has helped us very much. But here it crosses from this region through pipelines, through Esmeraldas, and there, this is where we export it. So we have some, as Ministry of Agriculture, at our ministry, the minister, we have been since 2018 here at the ministry, and we have been looking for other options since we have some chains, for example, sugarcane chain. I think we all agree that people all over the world are eating less sugar, and this has dropped demand, and it's already causing problems at the sugar industry. And also, as I explained before, the flower entrepreneurs, the flower businesses have been hit hard lately. And at COVID, with the coronavirus, they didn't have any exports because everybody stopped buying flowers. People wanted to buy food.
So you are kind of looking at a way of repurposing, in some ways, existing infrastructure.
What we were looking is at other options to diversify our agricultural products. We found hemp, mainly that's why we were here, but we have other, for example, the avocado. We are betting big on avocados for the next year. We are small in avocados now, but we think we can get in the next 10, 15 years, maybe 50,000 hectares of avocados, and that's also a great choice for us. And we have other fruits from this region that are very interesting niche markets that we are promoting. So let's jump into the inevitable. Yes.
Can you give us an overview of the cannabis market that Ecuador is now developing? Is it low THC hemp? Is it got THC? What is it exactly that you're looking at now?
Now you see my screen, and I'm at a PowerPoint presentation, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
No, we still see the screen. We still see the screen.
Yes, I think I have to wait.
Yeah.
I have to.
Well, we're just so impressed with the technology upgrade here that we are willing to do that.
Okay, wait.
Thank you for all of the prep for our call.
Let me sure. Okay. Now again. So last year, our assembly, our National Assembly, depenalized. Sorry, this is Spanish. I didn't have time to translate, but I'm going to talk over it. The 21st of December, the National Assembly, that's our legislative branch, depenalized cannabis with less than 1% THC.
Okay.
So we are the 1%. So it was depenalized 21st of December, but it was how do you say? It got at the 21st of June, it already what's depenalized. So it gives you, the assembly does it on the 21st of December, but they say in 180 days, so around 6 months, it will be already depenalized. And from the 21st of January, from June, the Ministry of Agriculture has 120 days to do the regulation. So we are still in time. Of course, we didn't wait until the 21st of June to start working. We have already almost final draft that is very, very advanced. We want to publish it before, but right now we are at a stage where we are explaining other institutions. For example, ARCSA, which is like the national FDA, about what they have to regulate so that we develop an internal market and we don't have the failures that other countries did or other countries in South America that they depenalized and everything, but they didn't develop the internal market. So for example, Colombia, they didn't want to export biomass because they said if we don't allow to export biomass, then the industry will be forced to develop here. But that didn't happen. So we are very aware that we are an agricultural land and that other countries are more specialized in industry. Of course, we want to get into it, but we are not going to shoot ourselves in the foot because of a romantic idea of let's develop everything. So we think the income of the export of the biomass should be the one that is going also to finance the industry.
Okay.
We also clearly identified that depenalizing less than 1% opens two roads. One is this here, the CBD cultivars or CBG, which are very similar to the THC genetics. So this was in Oregon, and when I got here, I thought, what is this? This is marijuana, but no, I had to smoke it to believe them. But then we realized, so if this looks very similar, then we have to regulate. I mean, we will have to regulate, because if hemp was everything like this on the right, then maybe a regulation wouldn't be needed. No, it's very identifiable, the difference between this and any marijuana plant. So we identified two big options. This one, which is more for the coast, more extensive, more, for example, the people that are in sugarcane right now that need different options, mainly for fibers and so on. Yeah. And this is more for China. There are Chinese companies interested in coming to Ecuador and develop this crop. And also the sugarcane industries are also looking into it so that maybe they invest in the industry and plant some hectares of this. And this is where we are betting on the long term. We do think that this is the crop that is going to be big in Ecuador in the maybe next 10 to 15 years. This is one that we think once we have the right genetics and we have identified them, that the national banks, public banks in Ecuador can put loans to develop it. On the other hand, on the left, the CBD varieties, at first I will ask please to people that are online to mute the microphones, please. On the left, at the beginning, we were like a year ago very enthusiastic about the CBD market, but as time has passed and we have more of these meetings and so on about the market. We have seen that the market is very, not what all these projections that you hear that you see in cannabis magazines, and or when companies say, yeah, it's going to be this big in the next 5 years, 10 years, billions of dollars. But we have identified that mostly people mix the medicinal CBD and the THC, so that's confusing. And we also see that there's a lot of a novelty market, which is very short term. Like, for example, when I was in Oregon, we saw like a bar of soap for $15 that maybe does quite the same as the one that just costs $1. So we are wondering about what the long-term market of CBD is. We also saw, I'm going to pass this because this is just explanation what the uses
Can I
are.
just quickly interrupt you for 1 second? Because so you're showing outdoor crops. Are you considering also doing indoor crops as well for the GMP export market or not?
Yes, yes. Yes, for the indoor, we see CBD can be done both outdoors and indoors. And the thing is, we already have an installed capacity because we have the flower business sector. So indoors already exist. So the advantage is that people don't have to make those big investments. They just have to get access to the genetics, to the seeds, and also learn how to do it. But I think we can lower the know-how curve because of our, we don't have seasons. We have just rainy season and dry season. But we also have the disadvantage that we have here in Ecuador, it's very boring because you have the whole all year around just 12 hours light. So we have to see the reaction of the flowering, if it's going to be needed outdoors lights or indoor lights, external lights and so on. So we have very clear that our first stage is going to be developing genetics. We are opening the country to allow imports of genetics from Colombia, from Uruguay, from the US, from Canada, from Europe, so that we can make it faster. And we also have our National Institute of Agricultural Research has an agreement with their partner from India. India is the origin of genetics of cannabis. And so we are going to have an interchange of genetics from them that will allow us to develop genetics as soon as possible.
So that's fascinating. I'm hoping we can sort of work around your presentation because I want to make this a little bit interactive, but clearly you have plans. How important, though, will the UN resolution be, presumably this December, in helping to drive your decisions and shape the program itself?
Can you repeat, please, Margaret?
Yes, of course. So how important will the UN resolution, presumably that will be voted on by the WHO this December, be in driving your decisions about the shape of the program that you're developing for the country?
Okay, for our part, we are less than 1% THC, so we are following close. It's mostly because of the market, so we are seeing the European market that's not very secure. One thing that I forgot to mention, we have a law since 2015 that already allows medicinal projects of marijuana, but that's at the health ministry and the interior ministry. But they they never regulated it. So now that we are regulating, we also have meetings with them to start their regulations so that they will be easier to match. Yeah, but we also see this as opportunity because we have seen that this does have a medicinal value. So we are also thinking for the country, for the people that are willing to use it. And that's why we also want to develop internal market. And if the external market develops, then great also. To be honest, on the CBD market, we are doing a regulation so that people can invest in it. We don't want to, as a state, we don't want to be a barrier, but we also are when we are having talks, we also say, this is not the fantasy or this is not not fantasy, but this is not, because everybody wants to hear about this presentation, but for example, as I explained before, we are also betting big on avocados, but nobody's asking about avocados. So we are also very trying to make people understand that it's not like this is easy money. So you have to invest on it. You have to do due diligence, try to find a market, what the market expects, and then try to get into it when you have done that. Because many people say here, hey, I have some land, I don't know what to do about people that have never been on agriculture. So we say, look, if you're not doing the right work, the due diligence to travel abroad and go to now because of COVID, it's not possible, but as soon as it's possible, go to the expositions and that there are schedules in the US or in Europe about hemp. Try to go to every one of those before entering this market. Because here, this is the graph that we have here. Here's how CBD has gone down. This is actually from January of this year. So our production here in the hemp market is very easy. We also have seen, we talked to our partners in Uruguay, and they told us after 5 years, they're going to do their first export to Switzerland, but it's just 14 tons. And if you have like a kg for plant outdoors with 5,000 plants per hectare, you have 5 tons per hectare in 4 months. And you're telling me that your first export is going to be 14 tons. So that's like the production of 3 hectares in just one planting. So the market is not as big as we expected. And we also, as I showed you the map, we are a land with soils of volcanic origin, and we do have the problem of heavy metals in the soil, not because of contamination, just because it's natural in our soils. And we also are aware of there are some restrictions on heavy metals. So those are all the things that we are putting, telling people. For example, in Colombia, if you want to have a license, you need a soil analysis to get the license. We don't want to do that because it cuts innovation. You can hire a PhD in soil nutrition, soil management. You can do hydroponics. So we are not going to put the decision of one guy to tell you, hey, this soil is good for growing or not. But we're not putting it as a requisite, but we are communicating very hard that people have to know exactly what is going to be demanded on these quality things before they get into the market.
How would you categorize then the foreign investment climate in Ecuador, particularly in, I would say, I mean, what I think is fascinating is you're trying to grow the internal market as much as you are the export market. But when you mention avocados, you're clearly looking at an international export market, right?
Yes.
So
yes, sure.
how would you, to the average investor, right? I mean, I would say somebody who has maybe a family office here in Europe, how would you categorize the agricultural vertical right now in Ecuador? What do you have a standard or average ROI on investments, especially for foreign investors? Is there such a thing? How are the metrics created?
If you have new investments, you get a 10-year exemption of certain taxes. So we do have that. Of course, we are looking mainly for exports at all agricultural level. But for this one, we also know that we cannot just rely on the export market. We have to develop an internal market. People that fought for the decriminalization of this here in the country are expecting this as a medicine also. We have to be aware of that. So that we are already coordinating with other governmental agencies. And here, for example, about this slide, here it says Ecuador is looking for a productive regulation and not a speculative one. And this is mainly because most people say we are already late for this, and we don't think we are late. what we are late is, for example, in Colombia, there's the case of one lady that had a rose flower production plantation. Let's say it was about 2 hectares or something. So she got her license, and then she sold the license with the land for $80 million. And for that, we are late for speculation. We don't want the license to be transferable. So if you are trying to do just business, getting the license and then selling the company, you're not going to be able to transfer the license. We want people to plant. We want people to export. We want people to give jobs. I mean, if some people are expecting to get a license to sell the company, give some paper value to a company, that's not going to happen with us.
So you're taking steps now to prevent speculation in licensing and land for this market, basically, right?
Exactly. So we want people to work, export, and give jobs. That's our main goal here. So
let me just ask another question though, and then I'll hand it back over to you. But what are you looking for right now? Are you looking for exporters? Are you looking for distributors in your sales markets? Or a certain area of the world? How do people who are listening get in touch with you to maybe say, how can I help? Because I think that's part of the purpose of having you on today.
Okay, we want. First of all, we have very clear, as I said before, that this is going to take some time. We have to develop and adapt genetics, especially our interest as a state is to develop the industrial hemp, the one that is for fabrics, textiles, bioconstruction, and so on. The other one, we see it as a very risky, very not secure. So, as I told you before, we are not, we are trying to do a regulation that people can get into it, not to be a barrier. We think the actual barriers here are the access to genetics and the access to the market. So it's on both ends. So we don't want the license to be a barrier, mainly. So, but if there are companies in Europe or in Canada or in the US that want to invest here on the growing side, on the production side, we are very interested, of course. But I also wanted to hear, I know there's many people here, I know as you told me when we had our first chat, there's a city in Germany that has banned CBD and so on. So we are more, as a state, we are more betting in the long term on the industrial hemp and also grain for oil. And we know the cake, that's how they call it, when you extract the oil from the seeds, it's very good for animal feed. So in the country here, we have a problem on the animal feed industry because we have very high prices of corn, and we want to get people out of corn and start growing hemp for seeds once we have developed the genetics for the country.
I know that you have more of your presentation, which of course I would love to give you ample opportunity to finish. But I also know that there are people sitting on the call. Does anybody have any questions? Or Martin, Patrick, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask? Or can we open it up to those people who are listening just for a quick round of hands?
So what I would suggest, if you have a question, just put it in the chat section and then we'll get to it that way.
Good idea.
I think, look, this presentation is long, and I think for the people that are hearing, it's not, here, for example, I explained that on the highlands, you will have longer cycles of production, more days to harvest, but with more content of CBD or also THC, because at a higher altitude, you have lower temperatures, and that makes a concentration of cannabinoids stronger. And on the coast, you will have shorter cycles, but also lower contents. So I'm done with the presentation now. And if you want to start answering questions, I'm ready for that.
Okay, so let's open this up. All right, so Nika, do you want to, what is the size of the investment Go ahead. I'm actually on my phone. Patrick, why don't you go ahead and take the questions? Patrick?
He's muted.
I'm on mute.
He was on mute.
Warren, do you have the questions in front of you?
I cannot see them very easily. Would you mind go ahead and reading the questions then, as they're coming in?
Martin, you're muted.
Oh, then I am on mute. Okay, now I'm free as well. Sorry.
I'm reading it.
There was a question from Nico Solomon. What is the size of the investment Ecuador is looking for?
Okay, we have put minimums on that. One thing I have to be clear about is what we have now is a draft, and everything is a draft until it's being signed. So we are thinking about a 2 hectares minimum, but we want to give you 5 years to get to that area. So it can be progressive, right? So 2 hectares minimum, but you have 5 years to get to the 2 hectares. So if it's a great business, I think you're going to ask for more land or for more license soon. But if you haven't developed that, it just means you don't have it wasn't that great business at all.
Is there a monetary commitment as well?
Sorry?
Is there a monetary commitment, an amount?
No. Like, I mean, if you're a foreigner, you will have to buy the land and do the infrastructure. But as I told you before, here in the country, we have a lot of people in the flower sector that already has infrastructure. So they are more about the getting access to the seeds, making adjustments, learning how to grow it. They already have experience with similar crops, and then access to the market, actually.
And are you going to limit the number of licenses, or are you unlimited?
No, we don't want to limit licensing. We want the market to be the limited, actually, but that's why we are communicating very hardly to people to do the due diligence before to get into this market.
And what is sort of the time frame from, applying for a license and going through the process? How long does that normally take?
As I told you, we don't want to be a barrier about this. We have an advantage that everything from the seed until the biomass or the first extraction of full spectrum oil, so what is raw material is inside one ministry. So you don't have to get, in other countries, you have to get a license, you have to get through 3 ministries and 2 other institutions. So here we have the chain, what is ours as Ministry of Agriculture under control, and then to the chain down, our local FDA, to call it like that, is needed for the internal market mainly. And then for the export sector, it's going to be mainly about the international requirements.
Donald has a question.
Yeah, hi. My name is Donald Castillo. I'm a international consultant. I have some questions for the Undersecretary. Does the tax exemption for foreign investments is sustainable, even though you have a new presidential elections pretty close from now? As we all know, like most of the regulations in Ecuador are very flexible, related to new governments in a very short period of time. And the other question is like, based on my experience, Ecuador just take too long in order to allow seed imports in Ecuador. Probably if you want to import a seed or a new variety of any given seed, it takes too long in order to be approved by Agricalidad and sometimes by the local, the National Institute of Agriculture Research. So this might be a barrier for starting up a new industry. So those are basically my 2 questions. I'll have some other questions since we're working with a group in Miami in order to probably think about a vertical integrated company here in Ecuador.
Yes, well, about the seeds, as you know, we have a seed law that we haven't touched. This is a depenalized crop and we are treating it as such. So what Donald is talking about, if you want to import seeds here to the country, you have to do an adaptability test that takes 1 year, and it's done by INEAP. But that's only when you want to be in the seed business. This is very important to know. So if you want to sell seeds, we make sure that what you're telling about the seed is true, like how much density, how much production per hectare, and so on. And then you can sell seeds. Of course, here in this market, you are going to be limited to the amount of licensed companies that have access that will be allowed to buy these seeds. But for example, if Donald wants to do a project and he gets a license of production of 10 hectares, he can ask, and he's not going to sell seeds, he can ask for an authorization to import the seeds just for the 10 hectares. So he will have to give us information about the seeds. And for this case, because it's hemp, he can do it to either transform it and do the oils here or to export the biomass. What he won't be allowed to do is to sell seeds. For that, he will have to get through the adaptability test. So if you want to get into seeds, you have to wait a year. If you want to plant, to export, or to give added value industrially, then we can give the authorization for the seeds. And about the tax exemption, yeah, well, I think Ecuador is now in a position where we have to get investment. So I don't think if any president wins, I don't think any president will get that down, actually.
I think Jorge had a question.
Yeah. Basically, the question about the tax exemption is because that was an initiative took by the Ministry of Commerce and Industries here in Ecuador, and actually it was supposed to end this year. So we don't know what's going to happen in the international investment industry. What is going to happen next year? If that is going to be renewed, because actually we don't know if that's going to be renewed for investment in specific areas in Ecuador, such as the depressed economic areas, such as basically most of the regions, which are very, very attractive for hemp industry. Which is not 10, it's actually 20 years if you invest in different areas in the, we had an earthquake here in Ecuador. So is that gonna be renewed? Because the law says, and the regulation of that tax exemption was said that it was supposed to be until this year. So we don't know, we would like to know if the government of Ecuador is gonna be renewing that pretty soon, or it's gonna be the initiative is going to be taken by the next government, which we don't know exactly who's going to be win. Nobody knows. And the other is, okay, based on what you said, that if we have, for example, if we have a vertical integrated company based on any given state in the US, and actually we have a market or any given place in the Europe, and we want to import our own seed for our production, how long does it take? A year, or it's going to be less time in order to import our own seed, or we have to wait a year in order to have the adaptability test?
No, I already explained it's faster. You don't have to go through the adaptability test. And about the tax exemption, the Ministry of Commerce already signed a document where he said that the hemp industry is going to get that tax exemption. And if you look at the presidential, we are not at elections right now, but if you see the people that are interested in running for presidency, they all talk about hemp right now. So I don't think they're going to get down off that train.
I think Jorge had a question.
Yeah, he seems to have popped off, but his question was, have you begun working with the Ecuadorian customs to set regulatory documentation?
Yes, as I explained before, we as a Ministry of Agriculture have until the 19th of October to get the regulation on our side. but we already are in talks with all other governmental agencies needed, and of course, customs is included, and also the new vice president was the former customs director, and this process of regulation was always worked with the vice presidency of presidency, so we have full support on that.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Because I've got still a few more, but I wanted to open it up to the floor.
I've got a general question. I understand very clearly where Ecuador is going to regarding hemp production and CBD. So basically, cannabis less than 1%. Is there any plans at all to be looking at THC greater than 1%, like medicinal purposes, or is that not in the in view right now, really, as any big priority?
Yes, I told it at the beginning, but I can repeat again. Since 2015, there is a legal framework for THC licensing for medical purposes.
Yeah.
That's on the Health Ministry and Interior Security Ministry. But now that we are doing it, they also are start doing it, and we are giving them support because on that regulation, we are going to be involved on the seeds side.
Okay.
So we are involved on that part of the chain in the THC market. It's for medicinal purposes, so it's going to be for sure more restricted, and it will be needed prescriptions and so on. You know, also health ministers are more about scientific data and so on before they get into anything. So yeah, we are not on the recreational side, like for example, Uruguay. But we do have the legal framework for THC.
Okay, for medicinal, okay.
Are you setting up any trials as you go forward, or any, I guess, programs that could work more easily with trials, maybe as an interlocutor between doctors and producers? Has that been raised at all?
Yes, and now it's getting, as the weeks passes, there are more of those meetings. But what we already have is some transfer of seeds agreements from our national agricultural research center, and they're going to start doing trials with seeds from the US for CBD and some other from hemp from China soon. So one thing is, most people ask if we are going to allow an exemption so that people, illegal seeds in the market to be regulated like Colombia did. I think there's a big difference between Colombia and Ecuador. We have never been a drug production country. So we never had that problem of illegal plantations. Of course, there are some people that grow at home and so on, but if they want to register the seeds, they have to go through the normal process with a law that already exists. And they will have to get through the adaptability tests.
So I have a sort of out-of-box question for you now. Did you ever think, and I don't want to guess at how old you are, but I would say you're certainly over, 25. Did you ever think that you would be setting up a...
I just have a lot of white hair.
No, but seriously, did you ever think that you would be setting up a cannabis program at any part of your government job?
Never.
What did that change for you?
That's what all my friends from college say. Hey, did you ever believe that you were going to work on this? Nah.
So you were voted least likely to start a cannabis program in school. That's awesome. What has surprised you the most in this process about the whole conversation?
Well, the thing is, you have to have a lot of meetings like this with people from other countries to try. This is like a big puzzle. Yeah. So from everyone we hear, we write certain things down. And it's also a world where every week you have news about what's happening. So I think we have to stop learning at some moment and say, hey, this is everything. Everything we have had a lot of meetings, but as a government, there's a moment where you have to say, hey, we have listened to a lot of people, but now we have to make decisions. And we are at that stage now. We also have people call me, people write to me, and I always try to answer, but I always also try to get new info, especially about the size of the market, because Ecuador has had experience, like for example, 20 years ago, the government, the state thought it was going to be like, we had experience with the shrimp market, which was a very big boom. We developed it. So for example, when you started back in the 80s, a shrimp farm, for every dollar you invested, you got $100 in just 5 months. So it was like a very big boom. So 20 years ago, there was the freshwater lobster project, and the state was betting this is going to be the next shrimp industry. And they started to give loans and loans, but it never developed. So we don't want those things to happen again. We don't think this is for public national banks to give any loans. We think in a near future, maybe 3-4 years, when there are industrial hemp seeds already developed, that we see that there's an industry that wants to invest on the industry side to lower the risk on the investment on the industry side. We think it will be a good strategy to give from the public banks loans to develop it, right? But first of all, we have to get the genetics done. We have to get companies that invest on the industrial side, and then we can give loans to develop the crop. On the CBD side, I think it will be a very big mistake to get a national bank system into it. That's for private equity investment, risk investment, and people have to work that they have to invest, lose some money, and then maybe win at the end. But you see, like for example, in Uruguay, they have been already 5 years with this, and some crops, some harvests just are stored at warehouses. In Colombia, there are companies that get out of the business every month. And also in Oregon or some states, the US, the harvest from 2009 is still locked up. So if you make an Excel sheet and you get rich on Excel, it doesn't mean you're going to get rich in real life. And a very nice price is nothing if you don't have an industry that is going to buy it from you. Or if you get into the industry, if there's no consumption, or the market in Europe is still problematic with the import side. So people have to be aware of this and know where to put their money.
On the industrial hemp side, you're looking for genetics to get the right, or you're working on genetics to get.
We are not working yet, but we know that the homework is working on it.
Yeah.
As I told you, we have just 12 hours of sunlight.
Yeah.
We have cloudy regions that are low productive on sugar cane, because sugar cane needs very much light, because it's Gramínea, it's a C4 crop, that's more technical, C4 photosynthesis crop. Cannabis is not. But we know we had 100 years of knowledge lost in cannabis. We know genetics are, we like that it needs 25% of water as corn. Yeah. But we are also aware that it doesn't need that much water, but it also doesn't like that much water. So you have to have good irrigation and drainage systems and good soils for that. So everything is getting the right genetics, getting a 12 genetics. We don't want to be flowering depending on having more or less sunlight. We are not in that position. But to be honest, here inside the Ministry of Agriculture, we bet that in the 10, 15 years, this is going to be a great income source for the country. And to be honest, the staff of the ministry, if you look at the minister, vice ministers, undersecretaries, we are all farmers. We have been in the farming business, but none of us is trying to get out and trying to plan this. We see it as very risky. So, but we don't want to be a burden and tell other people not to invest in it. Just we just are giving right advice.
We have a question. We have a question from Jorge. Actually, he's come back into the meeting, or maybe someone can read it.
Yeah, the EU is now very open to the importation of biomass. We have successfully sent 3 containers into the EU. I guess the question,
I don't know who that is and from which country, because that is very good news. Congratulations. And
hi, how are you? My name is Jorge Aduya. It's a pleasure to speak to you. We have, and one of the reasons that I wanted to participate in here is to see exactly what those plans were, because I'm pretty sure that the EU will also be open to buying Ecuadorian industrial hemp in the future when your crops are ready. We have, like I said, successfully just entered our first 3 containers, and we continue to do more. And I was wondering if you had plans in the future to be able to export your biomass.
yes, which country are you in, Jorge?
I'm in the United States. I'm in Miami. Actually, I'm very in love with Ecuador and its people.
But you exported from the US to Europe?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm also a freight forwarder and a customs broker.
We are leaving biomass, as at the beginning I explained. We don't want to do what Colombia did, that they didn't allow to export biomass. We want to export biomass, but we also have to be aware that the THC limit in Europe is 0.2.
Absolutely.
As I tell everyone, first is genetics. Try to get the THC content low. And that's why we want to develop the internal market, so that, and that's why we depenalize less than 1%, because if you're at 0.34 or 0.4 and you won't be able to export the biomass, then you need an internal market or an industry to get out the THC and be able to export it, or also internal market, so that it can like a escape valve, so that you can not lose the opportunity of sell the crop if you get above 0.3.
Yeah, that is the tough part, but I think you guys will be able to master that. I know that Ecuadorians are smart and industrious, and you guys will be able to get there.
Yes, for sure. I also bet. I mean, look, on the production side, we don't have any worries. We have, as I told you, we developed the banana industry, the shrimp industry, the flower industry, and we are still the top exporters in both bananas and shrimp. I think the flower business sector is very professionalized on how to manage crops. Growing flowers is top of the art management. I mean, they manage humidity levels. They can manage everything. Those are not the problems. The problems is if there are real market in the long term for CBD. Now CBD has dropped. Now it's CBG. So if it's going to be like that, then on the production side, we don't see any problems. Of course, people have to get access to genetics, and that's going to take some time. But I bet you Ecuadorian flower growers are going to learn very fast. But the real question is, are they going to be able to sell it? That, what you're telling me, is great news, actually. If you can leave your name and phone on the chat, or send me private as you wish, it would be great to have a chat with you.
Sure.
We can connect you, no problem.
Okay.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, I think that is a very good good time to wrap this up. Andres Luques, thank you so much for your time and your awesome presentation today. We are going to be, as I said, we'll post this on YouTube as well as on the Cannabis EU website. Nights at 1900 Clearly Cannabis Zoom call is going to be on the 13th of August. We're going to have a very interesting entrepreneur in the European, actually Swiss CBD space. So perhaps, Andre, you'd like to come back in 2 weeks and ask some questions, because Francis Scanlon has absolutely been on the front end of this, and the regulatory climate here in the EU is certainly interesting and has led to some choppy waters. I think Francis is a very interesting person because he's managed to survive a lot of that. But having questions and an interplay between the members of the industry and people like yourself, Andre, who are making big decisions about countries, is absolutely what we created Clearly Cannabis to be about in the first place. So thank you, everybody, for being here as a guest and participant. And once again, sir, thank you very much, Andres Luques, Undersecretary of Agriculture for Ecuador, for being with us here tonight on Clearly Cannabis.
Thanks to all. Thanks, Margaret, for setting this up. And I hope you come and invest in Ecuador or buy hemp from Ecuador.
Excellent. Thank you very much, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Take it easy. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.